Story 1. I lost one of my friends on a crazy night out in an unfamiliar city. She was not picking up her phone. We looked for her for over an hour within a half-mile radius. Finally, we got a call from a man from the bar who said he saw her wandering alone and had brought her to his apartment. He heard her phone ringing and called me back. She was indeed asleep on his couch. We thanked him, gathered her belongings, and left. A couple of days later, he called me again to ask me on a date. I politely declined since I had a boyfriend at the time, but I would have said no regardless. That was apparently unacceptable to him, and he told me I owed him for not assaulting my friend when he had the chance. He said he could have done whatever he wanted to her and did not need to call me at all, and that thanking him was the least I could do. I told him you don't get a reward for not assaulting someone. He insulted me, boasted about being a veteran, and expressed outrage before hanging up. I blocked him. Entitled and disturbing behavior. Story 2. A horrible date with a man named Josh back in 2002. We went hiking on our date. He spent the entire time bragging about how smart he was, smarter than everyone he had ever known. He claimed he knew not to go to a university because community college was just as good for much less. Everyone who went to a university was an idiot, and everyone who did not do things the exact way Josh did was a low IQ moron. All of Josh's coworkers were idiots. He said he was the best Geek Squad employee in history, and Best Buy would fall apart without him. Josh also had trouble finding a woman because he believed women often had low IQs and could not keep up with his intellect. He thought women were dumb, though he considered himself okay. I could not wait to get home and block him. Edit. I met him on Yahoo Personals. He seemed okay there, and we arranged a date after a short conversation. Yes, we had AOL Instant Messenger and Yahoo Messenger back then, and that was where I blocked him. I do not know where Josh is today, and I do not care. I do not care what his side of the story is. He was unpleasant and probably still is. No, I was not overweight. Josh's attitude and horrible personality are entirely his fault, not mine. Story 3. I hit it off with this one guy while out with friends. He was very sweet, said all the right things, and we were flirting for a while. Finally, I went to leave with a friend and got into her passenger seat. I was thinking of maybe meeting up with him until he came to my friend's car, banged on the window with his fists, and asked, "Do you want to have sex?" Before I could even roll the window down. I said no and started to roll the window up, but he put his fingers in it so I couldn't. He just stood there with an angry face for a while, called me a mean name, and stomped away. Story 4. Joined a gaming group and slowly started to speak to someone and made a close friend. 3 months passed and eventually he said he liked me. I said I did not feel the same. He took it well and said he was happy to remain friends. We had exchanged Christmas cards before it all went wrong, so he knew where I lived. Then the little signs of intensity started, until he was calling me 50 times a day, all day, every day, needing to stay in contact. Slowly, conversations turned to harassment every day, making up stories of things I had not done, berating me, and becoming angry if I did not reply within a 30-second window. I tried to cut him off, but then it became 10 times worse, with him screaming to everyone that he was going to harm himself if I did not speak to him. I was only 18 at the time. It was easier to keep the peace than to try to get away. Then the gift started, sending things to my house and turning up at my house multiple times a week despite living 300 miles away. He told everybody a completely different story from what he was actually doing to make himself look better and come out on top. It only stopped when I contacted the police. His entire family still blames me. Story 5. Oh my God. There was this man I would speak to on my commute. He was very awkward, and I made polite small talk. But really, I just wanted to read my book. One day, he approached me at the train station and said he saw me out with my husband and children. He then became very upset. He accused me of leading him on, called me names, threatened to harm himself, broke down crying, and begged me to leave my husband for him. Then, he asked no one in particular why this keeps happening to him. For those of you who read this and thought, she sounds like she could do with inappropriate messages, let me assure you, I do not. Please be better. Story 6. We bought groceries together for a work event. and he insisted on putting all the groceries into the car because I'm superior to him. I had to nervously laugh my way out of that and say no, of course not. When we got back into the car, he asked if I was in a relationship. I said no, but that I also wasn't looking. But I had a feeling he was going to ask. He said, "Not even with me?" I said, "No, not with anyone, sorry." He said I was being really rude by not even accepting a date. When we got back to work, he complained to everyone that I made him do all the shopping and that I then started name-calling in the car. He also said I wouldn't stop asking him on a date. Since everyone saw him bring the groceries back in because he had strongly insisted, at least that part looked true, and I was so scared because I didn't know how to sort the whole thing out. Luckily, the camera in the car had audio. Edit. I really appreciate all the advice, but this was a few years ago and has been resolved. He was fired soon after for apparently something else. Story 7. I was friends with him for 7 years. We supported each other in college, studying. He asked, and I set him up with a friend. They dated and broke up, but I stayed friends with both. We helped each other move at least 5 times, edited resumes endlessly, gave relationship advice, and I introduced him to people as my brother. Our maximum contact was an occasional hug. I found myself single near a big birthday. While crying about the fresh breakup on the phone with him, he decided that I should try dating him or at least hook up, and that I owed it to him because he had always been there for me. Excuse me? I had always been there for him too, and I didn't think anything was owed to me. Story 8. I grew up thinking that the effort you put into something would equal the outcome. Therefore, when I saw the scene in 10 Things I Hate About You, where Heath Ledger's character sings a song in front of a crowd and Julia Stiles swoons, I thought that was what you should do. I did that. It did not work. I mortified my crush and myself. That's just one instance. It took me a long time to figure out that people are not robots or machines and effort does not equal result. Sometimes people just don't feel that way about you, and that's okay. In fact, just accepting their feelings is more respectful than heaping adoration or praise on them because your first attempt didn't work. On top of that, letting go is better for your mental health. It felt absolutely freeing when I was casually dating someone, and she called me to tell me that she had committed to someone else and could no longer date me. My response was simply, "Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that, and I wish you the best of luck." I really liked her, but moving on and realizing it just wasn't meant to be helped me immensely. All good now. My dating life in my 30s was much better with this outlook, and I've been married for 7 years with 2 kids. Nice guys can change, but it comes with recognizing people are not computer programs meant to be hacked. Story 9. He was about twice my age. I was 25 and he was about 50. He was close to twice my weight, not in muscle, and was not active at all compared to my very active lifestyle at the time. He did not have any hobbies. I did not find him attractive, and we did not have anything in common. However, he got angry because I would not give him a chance, claiming he was a nice person. Then he spread rumors around the workplace. Yes, we worked together, which was also a factor in my decision not to pursue a relationship. He said I was mean, cold-hearted, and a tease because I flirted with him but would not go out with him. The flirting he referred to was simply me saying hello when I passed him on the factory floor. Story 10. I met a guy at my college's computer lab while I was studying. I used to be there at all hours of the night pulling all-nighters, and he would come over and study with me. I used to go get coffee from the nearby McDonald's, and he offered to come with me, which I agreed to. He purchased my cup for me and was overall pretty nice and attractive. One day, I agreed to go on a date to a 24/7 diner. Afterward, we ended up walking through a dark park. I was kind of uncomfortable, but I made it out. One night, we were studying, and he suggested we go back to his dorm room to continue. He kept offering me some of his medication, which I politely declined. He wasn't studying, he was lying on his bed. After a bit, I made an excuse to go back to my dorm room. He offered to walk me. On the way, we made a plan to go to the movies, but he wanted to make a deal that I had to drink. While we were talking and playing around, I ended up in an extremely tight headlock. It was dark, we were alone, and I was in a headlock. He eventually released it, and I continued on as if there was no problem. However, that was strike two, and it was clear what he was trying to do with the movie deal. When I got back, I blocked him and never spoke to him again. I stopped going there to study and avoided him anytime I spotted him. Story 11. Someone was my friend, and they were around me at parties. I got very drunk at one, and I was supposed to feel safe there. What he didn't know was that I heard him saying, as he put me into his friend's car, "She's going to be easy tonight," to said friend. The friend was a gentleman. He laid me in his bed, then went to get his Nintendo Switch, sat on the floor, and I woke up in time to see him playing. We became best friends. Thankfully, he never tried anything, and I cut the other guy out of my life. Story 12. Most baffling was a man at work who offered me a ride home. When we arrived at my place, he asked, "Aren't you going to invite me in?" Y responde, "No." Then he told everyone at work that I was a tease. Story 13. I met him when I was 16, he was 20, while playing League of Legends. We kept getting in the same games and eventually added each other and queued up. We lived in the same city, and there was a meetup for other gamers, so we met in person a couple of months later after playing every day together. I didn't have many friends, so I clung to him during these meetups where we all went to an internet cafe, got pizza, and played League of Legends. He was nice. He would pick me up and drive me to the city or take the train to mine and escort me down, teaching me about public transport. I truly saw him as a best friend. Eventually, I guess he got impatient. He was jealous that I had a crush on a guy in my grade, lamenting what this boy had that he didn't. He'd bring up all the things he did for me, how he never asked to be repaid. He wanted us to lose our virginities to each other. He wanted me. He never did anything to me when I was underage, a silver lining, I suppose. I drifted away from him, and he let go. 2 years passed. I was 18. I saw him again at a big League of Legends event in our city, and he started talking to me. I was naive. I forgave him. How could I hate someone for wanting me? He offered to drive me home. I accepted because it was late, and I had overstayed in the city talking to him. He had changed, apparently. He had gone to the gym, got fit, started seeing girls, and lost his virginity. Good for him, I said. He talked about how he loves it when women are smaller than him, like me, how these Asian girls love how big he is, and how he throws them around. I was uncomfortable because I am an Asian girl. He asked if I had done anything yet. I guess he thought my aversion to dating him before was because I was frigid. I was nearly home, nearly there. I texted my dad and asked him to meet me in front of the house because I was scared. He then asked if I would like to see his penis. I refused. He then asked me to change the song. I looked down, and yes, he had it out. He was smiling, thinking I'd be impressed or overcome with lust. Quite the opposite. I opened the car door while it was still moving. He swore, stopped the car, and I got out, telling him to never talk to me again. I was close to my home and saw my dad standing menacingly in the dark at the end of the driveway. I ran to my dad, and he charged down the street to the car. I got back inside, and not long after, my father did too. I blocked that guy on every platform I had him on except Snapchat, where he later sent me a slurry of abuse before blocking me as well. Not much was said, but it was not needed. I love my dad and the day he saved me. Story 14. I used to daily drive a heavily modified, high-horsepower, turbocharged car. One day, the turbocharger failed. No worries. It was on the top in front of the engine, so easy to access. A friend of mine, only a friend, offered to help. This is important. He offered. I never asked. He came by, helped remove the turbocharger. We hung out, talked, drank a beer or a few, finished the removal, and he went on his way. I then sent the turbocharger back for warranty. Came back about a month later. In the meantime, I had met another friend who happened to be a professional mechanic. When I said I couldn't hang out with him on a weekend day, he asked why, so I explained. He offered to help with the installation. I thanked him, and that was that. He came over, helped install the turbocharger, we grabbed some food afterward. Then he went home. Eventually, the first friend asked when we were reinstalling the turbocharger, and I told him it was already done. He got a little weird, but apparently, I missed the whole thing. Then he started digging as if I wasn't capable of doing the job myself. I am. He kept asking who helped me with the install. I told him it was the second friend. His reply? Well, I bet he at least got laid for his hard work. I guess eventually he did, since we've been together for almost 18 years, but not because he helped me do something I could do myself. In short, a nice guy thought that helping me work on my car would get him laid, even though I absolutely didn't need his help. Story 15. My friend group was out dancing, and we talked to a group of men one of us knew. I met them for about 30 seconds in a dark club and then went back to dancing with my friends. One of those men asked a friend for my number and stalked me for 3 years. The Norwegian police took him to court, and he continued messaging me from new numbers, telling me we were made for each other until he was sentenced. Story 16. I met a guy at work who seemed really cool. We would have cigarettes together every once in a while for months. I gave him my number but told him up front I wasn't interested in him in that way. He said that was fine and he understood. We texted occasionally and made plans to hang out, but neither of us could make it the few times we tried. One day he was drunk and texting me flirty things, which I ignored. After that, he apologized and I said it was okay, reiterating that I wasn't looking for anything like that. He continued to text me nonstop, repeatedly asking why I wasn't responding and why I gave him my number if I didn't want him. He said he clearly wanted me and that's why he gave me his number, which I must have known. I told him it wasn't personal and that I wasn't over my ex. Then he asked me for graphic details about my ex, like physical attributes and what made him great. I quickly ended the conversation. Later, he accused me of being like every other woman, damaged goods who blame all men for the actions of their exes. It became scary, so I blocked him. Over a year later, he reached out to me from a burner Facebook account, telling me he now has a driving under the influence charge and that it was my fault because the night of our conversation he got drunk and went driving. I responded asking him not to contact me again. He wrote back asking, "Remind me again why you don't like me? Because I'm creepy? A nice guy." His words exactly. He is a disturbing individual. Story 17. He helped me move, brought me coffee, and always acted like a great friend until I started dating someone else. Then he completely flipped, called me ungrateful, and said I owed him a chance. Classic nice guy behavior, kindness with conditions. Story 18. I knew this guy in my freshman year of college. He was super nice and always willing to go out of his way for people. One night, I was at a party with him and my girlfriends, and we all got completely wasted except for one friend who was the designated driver. It turns out he tried to get me to come home with him. When my sober friend told him no, absolutely not, he went into a whole spiel about how I owed him sex and needed to come home with him. We all left immediately, and I don't even remember any of it. Story 19. Realizing that I was being won, despite my best intentions. I doubt that I was the worst version of a nice guy that any of the women in my life were forced to deal with, and my behavior was born more out of ignorance than selfishness or malice. But it still hurts, both emotionally and physically, to remember my actions and the impact they had on people I loudly asserted that I cared about. Story 20. My roommates and I were having a house party one evening with about 40 friends. One woman got very drunk, so we put her in my bedroom and closed the door but checked on her periodically. When I went to check on her, a guy we knew was in bed with her trying to convince her to wake up and sleep with him. He was actually a pretty nice guy, and I enjoyed chatting and hanging out with him. However, I told him to leave the room and my house immediately in a very serious tone. He left promptly, and that was the end of it. He eventually married another friend, had children, and seemed to have a happy life together. It was very bizarre and unexpected. I am glad the woman was safe. Story 21. He works in the same lab as me. We are both from the same part of the world, and he insisted he could predict the type of person I was, that I like music, enjoy spicy food, and want to get married and have children. That applies to most people. He kept insisting we had so much in common. Then he asked me out for a team planning meal, but it would only be him and me. My gut told me to run, and I said it would not be appropriate, especially if it was meant to be a team event. He tried to laugh it off, saying I was overthinking it and that it was just friendly. The last straw was when he tried to corner me in the lab, asking personal questions under the guise of just getting to know a colleague. I told him unequivocally that if he needed to talk, it must be by email only. It did not deter him, and it only stopped when human resources got involved at my insistence. He stopped asking questions, but the stares did not stop. Neither did the weird little comments slipped into casual conversations, like, "I know you better than you think," or "You will come around." Story 22. Freshman year, a guy in one of my classes offered to tutor me in statistics. I said sure, he was good at it and I actually needed the help. Every session, he brought me a little gift: coffee, granola bar, handwritten poems. I tried to tell him it wasn't necessary, but he brushed it off. Then one day I thanked him and said I finally passed the quiz. His response: "Well, now you owe me a date, or at least a make-out session." I said no. He told everyone I had been leading him on for months. I was just trying to understand standard deviation. Story 23. Date with a local guy while I was home for the summer living abroad many years ago. He was nice and cute but trying a bit too hard and wanting to move really fast. I think I was 25 at the time and not ready for marriage. After 2 dates, I just wasn't feeling it as he was overwhelming me with all kinds of lavish gifts, like wireless earbuds and expensive alcohol that I liked. He had some money but wasn't very wealthy. From the beginning, when I declined a 3rd date, he started sending the gift packages to my mother's house. He always included a love note about how much he liked me and how desperately he wanted me to come over to his place for dinner sometime. The craziest was the last gift, which included 2 concert tickets to see Bon Iver in the European city where I was currently living. He said he would fly out and come to the show with me. Needless to say, I did not go, and the concert ironically ended up being canceled by the artist. I guess it was never meant to be. He promptly blocked me on all social media after that. Story 24. I once went out with a nice guy named Matt who said he loved soft girls with deep thoughts. Seemed poetic. Big mistake. On our date, he took me to a coffee shop with no menu because real connoisseurs know what to ask for. He then ordered for me without asking because he could tell what kind of girl I was. He kept calling me kitten the entire time. I had never given him a nickname to use. He asked if I liked guys who cry, and when I said sure, I think it's healthy, he launched into a rant about how women say they want sensitivity but always go for jerks. Story 25. When I was in my 20s, I lived with my male coworker and best friend for a year. I am a lesbian and had a long-distance girlfriend at the time. They formed their own friendship when she would come to visit. One weekend, I was away for a wedding, and behind my back he moved her into our home. I was shocked when I came back to this surprise. She told me he was adamant about how I wanted her to move in, but I was too scared to ask her, so he wanted to surprise me. For the record, I did not want to live with her at that time. Within the first 6 months after she moved in, he was the standard nice guy. We all cohabited well and formed an amazing friendship with family meals, movie nights, and outings. Then one night he said he wanted to have a meeting with us. In a very serious and emotional moment, he told us that he wanted us to start a family together and that he would impregnate my girlfriend so we could all spend the rest of our lives living together. We thought he was joking, but he was almost on the verge of tears with how much this meant to him and said he was in love with us both. We both rejected the idea and privately discussed how uncomfortable it was. In the following months, he started pitting us against each other, not cleaning up, and telling each of us that the other was cheating. When we eventually decided to move out and broke up, he immediately tried to date her, and she ended up cutting contact with him because he was so pushy. We tried to maintain an amicable friendship because we worked together, but he kept making weird sexual comments to me and I eventually got a new job. A year later, he asked me to go on a walk so we could try to repair the friendship. He gave me a letter stating he was in love with us both and had never imagined dealing with heartbreak from 2 women. He blamed both of us for failing school, living in a bad apartment, and not being where he wanted to be in life. It was strange, manipulative, and heartbreaking because prior to living together, he was truly one of the nice guys. Story 26. A lot of guys online just call you a disrespectful name right away. If you talk for 10 minutes, then you owe them something. If they talk to you for 10 minutes, then you owe them something. This type of logic. Story 27. I was friends with a group of people and closer to one guy in particular. I babysat his child, and he bought me dinner. It was a very give and take type of friendship. One time, I was feeling suicidal and really needed to go to the emergency room. I wanted to avoid a large ambulance bill, so the guy I was close to took me. Afterwards, he wouldn't stop pressuring me to date him. I said no each time and was met with, "But I took you to the hospital." It was heavily implied he would have just let me die if he had known ahead of time that I would not date him. How lovely. Story 28. If a man insists he is a nice person, I assure you he is not. I recommend reading The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Every one of these examples could have been in his book about men's behavior that occurred before these women were assaulted or killed. Story 29. One time, a man took my business card and stalked me on Facebook, begging to take me on a date and saying he always stared at me while I worked. I deleted and ignored his message request. He then came up to me, insisting that I needed to reply and go out with him. I was in a relationship at the time, but he accused me of lying and said that if I knew what was good for me, I would be with him. The police did nothing, and neither did my boss. He said that was what he gets for being a nice guy. Story 30. I haven't had any because I'm a man, but I've heard various horror stories from friends. Perhaps the worst was with a girl I was dating a few years ago. She had a lot of admirers, but there was one in particular who managed to break into her inner circle by playing the long game of pretending to be her friend. This wasn't for a few months. That guy had been hanging out with her for years, secretly liking her but ostensibly claiming to be just a friend. Of course, this is a terrible thing to do, but most people like this never actually muster the courage to say anything, so for all intents and purposes, they are sort of friends. However, this one was determined to find the perfect time to confess his feelings so that she would also reciprocate. Did he choose to take her out on a wonderful day of activities, reminiscing about their good times together and their compatibility before expressing his feelings? No. Did he get her a thoughtful gift before confessing because he couldn't hold it in anymore? No. Did he just tell her directly and ask about her feelings because pretending to be a friend when you have ulterior motives is terrible and better to come clean late than never? No. He chose to confess his feelings a few days after her dad passed away from cancer because, in his mind, her being vulnerable increased his chances. Yet another sign of a terrible person. Of course, this same guy always spoke poorly of any prospective boyfriend she might have met and constantly undermined any actual boyfriend she had until she broke up. Terrible, spineless behavior. Story 31. Guys, take note. So far in this thread, the things that make these men wildly unattractive are their behavior. The ones whose appearance is even mentioned are those who either have a mismatch of ideal activity level or poor hygiene. Rule 1, being be attractive, is more about how you treat people and putting effort into yourself and your hobbies than your genetics. Rule 2, being don't be unattractive, is about not treating women or whoever you are interested in like a piece of meat whose only value is whether you have sex with her or not. Also, do not put other people down to try to make yourself seem better. Sincerely, a man who is always surprised when I talk to my friends who are women about just how low the bar is for dateable men. Story 32. Has anyone had an experience with a man who was genuinely kind but it did not end well? For example, a man who opens a car door for you but slips and falls, causing you to break your elbow? Story 33. I wish there were some way to burn every copy of every episode of the TV show The Big Bang Theory. While it was airing, this strange man thought it was perfectly normal to follow me to my office on my first day of graduate school. He stood at the door to block my only exit and proceeded to tell me that he had to follow me because otherwise he might not see me again. I had to nod along while he thought it made perfect sense to deliver a sales pitch for himself. Fortunately, the department head agreed to give me a new office near the receiving desk, so there would always be other people nearby. What a terrible start to the academic year. Story 34. I'm a guy, and I cringe to think I may have acted like a nice guy at some points in my life, but this story happens after that era because I was never that bad. Out at a bar with some friends one random university Saturday. We're dancing, singing along with the band, when suddenly I feel a hand on my shoulder, which then firmly, but not aggressively, spins me around. I blink to see a tall brunette girl smiling at me, asking if I'd like to dance. Far from my first rodeo, I nonverbally smile, nod, and gesture to an open spot beside the group I was with. We dance and sing along for a few songs, dancing flirty and playfully, but nothing raunchy or intimate at all. I ask if she'd like a drink. She accepts. We go to the bar to make small talk and get to know each other. Then I offer to introduce her to my friends. It's at this point I notice a guy glaring at me, a stare with a very contempt-filled face, like he's planning to kill me in some intricate way. I shrug it off and continue my dalliance with my new friend. After we chat with my group for a bit and dance a couple more songs, she offers to introduce her group of friends to me. Take a wild guess who we start walking towards. I watch his face flip on a dime as we're walking over to a much softer smiling face. I'm cordial, introduce myself, talk for a bit about school and where they're from. All seems fine and I'm ready to chalk up the earlier weirdness to male resting face. But he suddenly changes his tone and asks the girl I was dancing with if they could speak alone. Not wanting to make things awkward, I excuse myself to the washroom as he says that. I don't see them when I exit the washroom, so I go do some shots with my friends at the bar. It's been about 30 minutes at this point and they're nowhere to be seen. I assume something happened and the girl's friend group needed to leave, no big deal. Then, I feel the same hand as before on my shoulder, but I spin around on my own this time. She is still smiling, but more of a dejected smirk than the wide smile I saw last time. I hand her the drink I just ordered for myself and say, "You seem like you need this more." She drinks it, lets out a long sigh, then says, "Where were we? I think we're behind on both drinks and dances now. We have some making up to do, so that's what we did for the next hour." We separated from my friends, took turns getting drinks for each other, dancing, singing, stealing a short kiss or two from each other. The night had been a ton of fun so far, and I'm really starting to like this girl and wanted to see if we could leave together. I hadn't seen anyone from their friend group since earlier, so I connected the dots that she started to go home with them but changed her mind and wanted to hang out with me more. Well, I was completely wrong. We hear some commotion from the other side of the bar and walk over to see what's going on. Her friends, along with the glaring man, were still in the bar. He had gotten belligerently drunk, fallen over a table, spilled a bunch of drinks, and knocked some people over. Once she realized who it was, my new friend rushed to his side to check if he was okay. He almost immediately started yelling at her, calling her a teasing whore, "Stop pretending to care. Go be with your Chad since he's so much better than me." The whole incel 9 yards. She started crying and ran out, and I followed to make sure she was okay. I get the whole rundown from her. Apparently, during that 30 minutes I thought she left, they stepped outside for a smoke and he confessed his love for her. He said it made him really upset that she danced with a random stranger before ever asking him. He asked her to be his girlfriend right there. She shut him down, said she only thinks of him as a friend and wants nothing beyond that. While she would like to continue that friendship, she doesn't like being told who she can and cannot talk to or dance with by her friends. They had a short argument that ended with her going back in the bar and him staying out there with his friends comforting him. After that, they all came back inside together. He must have seen us dancing again, which led him to get blackout drunk, make a complete fool of himself, and get banned from the best bar in town for a year. She apologized profusely for dragging me into this mess and said she's not going to be friends with him anymore. I said she has nothing to apologize for. We exchanged numbers, kissed, and she went home with other friends from her group. I've maybe felt the kind of limerence that Guy must have felt that night, seeing someone I greatly fancy choose someone else right in front of me. But the outlet for those emotions is never whining, screaming, or self-destructing like a toddler when you don't get your way. I thought we all learned that in elementary school. The moral of the story is, if you go into a friendship with someone you have a secret crush on with the expectation that you will eventually date them, you're setting yourself up for failure and heartbreak every single time. Anyway, we stayed in touch for a few months and went on a few dates but ultimately weren't right for each other and ended things amicably. Story 35. Ugh. This guy. We hung out for years and I considered him a good friend. We'd play video games, go eat, and so on. When I left my ex, it tore me up. He was such a good person, but I just wasn't happy at all. I was texting him about it, And he sent me a long message about how he had waited so long for me and felt like it was his turn. I was baffled and didn't reply. Then he sent, "Even if you won't date me, I can give you something physical." I told him we weren't going to discuss that and tried to put some distance between us. He apologized but kept trying to get me to come over and drink with him almost every day, which definitely gave me a bad feeling. When I wasn't hanging out or really speaking with him, it started to ramp up. He began showing up at my work to stare at me from outside the storefront, then sent me messages of him crying with captions like, "Please, I can make you so happy, it's not fair, and if you ever cared about me, you'll give me just one thing." So I blocked him everywhere. Several weeks passed, and I got involved with my now husband. We made it official on social media. Then I got a text from an unknown number saying, "I see why you had no time for me," followed a few minutes later by, "Fucking slut." He was unhinged. I'm convinced he was going to try to get me super drunk and take advantage of me, and I'm so glad I never went around him again. It really broke my heart that someone I thought was a good friend was just waiting for his moment to try and swoop in. Story 36. A guy I knew in high school asked me out. Then he faked a self-harm attempt and hospitalization when I turned him down and pretended to be his mother, telling me how he is so nice and deserves at least one date when he gets out of the hospital. When I called him out, he said he does not date pathetic females like me anyway. Real charmer. Story 37. I knew him for almost 7 years. Over time, he went through phases of liking every girl in our friend group. By senior year of high school, he had moved on to me. Throughout that time, I made it clear that I wasn't interested in dating. The girls in our group saw him as a nice guy because he acted like he was the smartest person in the world. In reality, he treated us poorly and couldn't understand why no one wanted to date him. When I started dating my ex, he began kicking him under the lunch table, calling him names, and making jokes that made me uncomfortable. Eventually, he stopped being friends with me and told me that if I ever changed my mind, he would be there. After that, he started talking badly about me to anyone who would listen, claiming I had led him on. Although we were still in the same friend group, he treated me terribly, and we barely spoke. Eventually, I realized the friend group was toxic for other reasons too, so I left. I later found out he believed I left because my ex was abusing me. No one questioned him. I was safe. They just wanted to make me a damsel who couldn't be saved by him, I guess. They are all still friends, so maybe he grew out of it. Story 38. I met a guy in college who I got along with really well, but I only ever saw him as a friend. One day, he asked to go get coffee, so we met at a coffee shop, and he confessed his attraction to me. I was flattered but let him down gently, saying I just see him as a good friend. He said he understood. We continued chatting, and I brought up my sister. He instantly asked if I thought my sister would go out with him. Like, dude, just no. Story 39. I went on 2 dates with a man, and after the second date, I politely told him that I was not feeling anything romantically and did not want to continue seeing him. I woke up to 9 to 10 long paragraphs of text about how I was making a mistake, that he would have treated me well, and that most men are not as great as he was. I spent maybe 5 hours total with this man, including time spent watching a movie. Story 40. I try to treat people nicely because I am a scary-looking dude, and being nice breaks the fear. At that time, I was 250 pounds, 6 feet tall, working as a bouncer as well as my day job. I am also aware of nice guy issues and ensured that I don't act like a nice guy to people, only showing that side to real friends. But my worst nice guy experience was because I was the perceived nice guy. This situation occurred at the end of 2002. A girl from my former high school took the same obscure bus route as me to catch her connecting bus at a busy intersection to save time on her way to work. It was a bus that went up the main highway, which exited at a major intersection where north-south and east-west bus lines intersected. It saved me 20 minutes on my commute. The bus had its own lane for that portion of the highway, so it was a surprisingly good shortcut. Since we were the only two who got on it and took it to this specific intersection, she initiated conversations, and then I would speak with her. I would say hello and make small talk. She was a bit younger than me, and I was never looking at her as a dating or relationship type of woman. So, Monday to Friday for about 4 months in 2002, We had a 7-minute period where we'd sometimes exchange hellos, goodbyes, pleasantries, and sometimes a nod if the other was listening to headphones. One day, she was at the bus stop with her boyfriend, and he gave me a death stare. So I chose not to say hi but nodded a greeting to them. He took the bus with her from that time forward. After a few days of this, he told me not to talk to his girlfriend, and if I did, he said, and this is a quote, "I'll show you what a black belt in martial arts can do." I smiled because not only was it stupid, it was as amusing as a preschooler thinking they could beat up an adult with their foam ninja toys. I said, "You got it." But each day thereafter, when he was with her, he still glared at me. It was very funny at my workplace when I shared it with all the guys I worked with. The place was full of junior-level hockey players. As the boss liked athletes, they all told me to beat him up if he tried, but I let it pass as he was just an idiot. There was one day when she was alone, and she actually apologized for his behavior. I said it was okay, not the first time a dog had barked at me. She told me he had a genuine black belt in Taekwondo and that he was itching to fight me. I let her know that was fine, he was most welcome. Then one day in December 2002, he did a fancy-looking spin kick on the bus in my direction and told me I couldn't take that bus anymore. I had one of the best real-life laugh out loud and clapping moments. She tried to get him to leave me alone. He was causing a scene, so I told him if he wanted to, I would get off the bus at the same place so he was free to do as he pleased. I got off the bus as normal. He and she got off after me. He yelled at me while I was not facing him. I turned to see him doing another fancy spin kick. Instincts kicked in, and everything went in slow motion as I got ready to deliver my right fist to his face. Before I could fully throw it, though, I watched as his foot slipped. He came off the ground, and the top back of his head landed on the icy Ottawa pavement with a smack. Slow motion ended. He was moaning, concussed, and bleeding. My knowledge of first aid kicked in, and I immediately stabilized his head. I was on my knees with my hands and forearms on either side of his head and neck, stabilizing his head and not letting his neck move. The bus driver called it in, and police and ambulance arrived. They thought I had hit him, but thankfully the whole side of the bus and the driver saw it all, and I have people testifying what they saw. The girlfriend saw it too, but was in shock at her boyfriend getting hurt. I was on my hands and knees stabilizing his neck for about 20 minutes before he was taken away by ambulance. I gave a statement to the police and ended up almost 2 hours late for work. I had to take the long way to work, which meant waking up an hour earlier to make the other route. And that was the worst nice guy experience I've had. Story 41. This is the way this topic will go. Women will post their completely valid experiences with horrific men, wolves in sheep's clothing as it were. Some people will be justifiably outraged at their behavior. Some men will justify the nice guy and completely misunderstand what makes them a nice guy, while giving all the signals of involuntary celibate behavior themselves. Others will then use this as an excuse to trauma dump about how they were perceived wrongly by women in their lives or on dating apps, inserting some "women only want bad boys" for extra credit. Men need to understand that a nice guy is not what most of us are led to believe by other nice guys. They are actively more dangerous than normal people because their facade is that they are friendly, lovely, affable, and not after the one thing. Women can see through this through experience. When they tell you it's a nice guy, trust me, there's no interpretation in 99.9% of cases. The world isn't split into nice guys and bad boys. Women want normal men who treat them normally in the vast majority of cases. And I will be downvoted by nice guys for pointing this out. Story 42. Secondhand experience. A classmate in college was going out of his way for a pretty classmate, doing favors and giving expensive gifts, showering her with praise. He told me he just needed a chance and she would see how great he was. He said he was doing it because she deserved to be treated well, not because he wanted her to feel obligated. The guy was moderately attractive and took care of himself. However, she was in a relationship and not interested, just being polite. I didn't need to see more to know it was not going to work out for him and he was wasting his time. I did not look forward to his inevitable regret over wasting so much money. Thankfully, it did not happen during that course, so I never heard the outcome. Story 43. I'm bisexual. I met a nice guy who was also queer and knew my boyfriend well. We started bonding as friends. He's the kind of person I can leave my drink around and feel safe. He got married, and everything was great. Then one day, out of nowhere, he texted me to try to talk me into a threesome with him and his wife, with the condition that my boyfriend could not know. I had never shown any interest in him or his wife. I told my boyfriend and immediately blocked him. We still have mutual friends and see each other occasionally, but I refused to talk to him. Story 44. Not a nice guy, but I had a nice girl experience. When I was new in college, I was hanging out with a friend. She brought another girl along, and we were just getting ice cream. My friend's friend seemed nice and a bit flirty. I didn't think much of it, but she asked me to come to her place later. My friend told me that she had a boyfriend, so I declined, not wanting to put myself in a situation hanging out one-on-one with a taken woman. She called me all kinds of colorful slurs and then told me she was just messing with me and wouldn't ever touch anyone like me. So that was cool. Story 45. I dated a nice guy for 2 months. My friends kept calling him a red flag. He would get angry at the smallest slight he felt, which were often made up in his head. He called me a prude for not jumping into bed. When I finally got around to dumping him, he kept calling me, yelling, and telling me he was a nice guy. I told him nice guys don't gaslight women, to which he responded, "With your views on nice guys, you will never find anyone in your lifetime." Another nice guy, when I was 18, controlled me, told me if I ever left him, he would kill himself after hurting me, then kept crying when I finally did dump him, saying, "I'm a nice guy, I don't deserve this. I only make you cut your nails and ask you not to wear makeup because I am a decent man who just wants the best for you because I know what's best for women, and I know I am what's best for you, and right now you are being difficult." Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.